Thank you very much for this opportunity. Really, this is an effort by the District Attorney's Office to do a little hanging out west of the I and sort of talk about some of the issues we know are relevant to folks on this side of I-94 and really talk about some of the things the District Attorney's Office is doing and planning to do this direction. And the primary matter of concern is really the opioid crisis in our county and all across the country. And one of the things that I want to be sure you hear me say is that opioids means both pain pills, so I'm talking about OxyContin and Vicodin and things like that, but then the directly related drugs that are the illegal non-prescription drugs like heroin and fentanyl, right? Same category of drugs causing the same crisis in this county. This is a crisis that's been going on now for more than 5 years. In Kenosha County, every one of the last 5 years, we've lost between 45 and 50 people who've died of overdoses. I've been in the law enforcement world as a prosecutor for almost 30 years, and I've never seen a drug crisis that had this many people dying and this many places where it directly impacted our criminal justice system. And I've also never seen a drug crisis before that had such an impact in our rural parts of the county. So, you know, I was here 20 years ago when crack cocaine hit Kenosha, but it really stayed east of the I in almost all of its major sort of impacts. Heroin and that crisis that we're in right now and have been for several years is equally hitting west of the I, in my opinion, as it is east of the I. A couple years ago, Twin Lakes had 6 separate heroin overdose deaths in 1 year, so a community that small. So talking about that, I want to tell you what else sort of the impact is in the criminal justice system, and then I want to talk about what the DA's office is trying to do and let you respond to it or think about it or talk to me about it in any way you want. Not only is virtually every burglary of a home happening west or east of the I in Kenosha County, and almost every armed robbery happening in our community right now directly related to heroin addiction and fentanyl addiction. But it is causing all sorts of problems in our foster care system, in our termination of parental rights system. So, for instance, this year we have twice as many kids in foster care in Kenosha County as we did 5 years ago. And anybody who looks at this and from the Department of Social Services will tell you that's all about the opioid crisis. More kids from communities west of the I in foster care than I think in any time in our history. And that's because of addiction issues that are this end of the county as well. And for instance, this year, typically in any given year in our county, we will terminate the parental rights of parents who are struggling with addiction and cannot parent their children for an extended period of time. We'll usually do that about 44 times a year in a typical year in Kenosha County. This year, we're on schedule to do 91 of those terminations of parental rights, taking kids from their parents to take them to adoptive homes. And of course, as taxpayers, we're paying for all of the processes and costs that I'm talking about. So that's a huge impact in every different place in the criminal justice system. Fill in our jail, fill in our social service system, taking up almost all the time of prosecutors. One other issue I want to bring up, just because I think it's also directly relevant west of the I, is the difficulties that schools and law enforcement and social services has had with all the threats in school buildings that have happened. And this is both of the high schools this end of the I and also some of the grade schools this end of the I. So last year we had 25 individual times that either on social media or calls were made to schools in our county where school officials had to decide, are we going to tell the parents? Are we going to close the school building? Are we going to bring the police into it? We convened a meeting where we had all of those parties in the same place, and what we discovered was none of us had any kind of common training on which of those children threats were really serious and which ones we should prioritize. And really we didn't have any sort of common language to speak about what to do about those cases. So we went and got some training. We had 2 full days of training that have happened now for our local law enforcement, social services, and schools. And now we are putting together a program where we're going to all be on the same page about each and every one of those. We're going to figure out which ones are the jokes, which ones are the ones where you got to close a school building. One of the things we've decided is that you have to take the phone from young people in these situations. Your whole life, if you're under 20, is on your phone these days. So we're doing that in every case we possibly can. So here's why it matters in a place like Bristol. Nationally, 70% of all the school shootings that have happened over the last 20 years have happened in rural schools. So this is not a city school problem primarily in any way, shape, or form. And in terms of whether it only affects high schools, 3 of the kids who have been directly involved in school shootings over the last 20 years have been kids 12 or under, so grade school age. Okay, real quickly, 2 other things we're going to do, and then I'm done and you guys can ask any questions you wish. One is that we decided at the district attorney's office in the last couple years that one of the crime needs west of the I was domestic violence counseling that was evolved locally. So let's say that we have a person who gets convicted of a crime of abusing their girlfriend or their wife. Previously, if they were on probation, they had to go to counseling in the city of Kenosha, almost down by Lake Michigan. So, for many people, a 35, a 45-minute, in some places in the county, each way to get to that counseling. And that was too much, and for folks who had family members, et cetera, who needed that counseling, it was too far away. So we've partnered with a couple of other people, and there are now a couple of sites where next month they're going to start domestic violence counseling in west of the I locations. So there'll be a Salem Lakes location, there'll be a Trevor location. And so we'll be able to eliminate the excuse from people who don't want to get necessary counseling, but also have people who are counseled closer to home. Last thing I want to bring up is traffic tickets by the Sheriff's Department that are Sheriff's Department tickets which the DA's office handles. So if you want to challenge or negotiate one of those tickets currently, you have to come on a Friday afternoon to the Kenosha courthouse, which again it means you're all the way down by the lake, right? We're going to move our site a couple of times a month where the DA's office negotiates those tickets, so you can have a chance to negotiate or tell us you're not guilty and explain why in those tickets. We're going to do that at the county building, so at Highway 50 and 45, and that again will start next month. We average about 15 of those a month, and so we'll do those for anybody who has an address west of the I, they'll be able to have those DA pretrials held out here. Just a couple of ways we're trying to make sure we serve all members of the county by bringing services this direction. So those are a couple things I'm focused on. Thank you again for giving me some time, and I'm ready to answer any questions if that's appropriate.
Sure. Just a quick comment from me, and that is that it is appreciated that Kenosha County recognizes the needs of people west of the I more and more nowadays and are providing services and focus. So thank you for that. I've heard more of a separate comment, more about the county's focus on opioids and substance abuse in general, and I know the county has made many more resources available and is even using some grant money to provide further education. I was fortunate enough to help in conjunction with the county and my own company to sponsor an event where 30 or 40 local employers came to hear about the opioid crisis and what employers can do about it. So I'm just offering that as a
fantastic
comment and a thank you for that.
So we're doing 2 things. One, we're trying to divert people who have opioid problems who are first offenders. We're trying to get them out of the criminal justice system if we can, if they'll do treatment, okay? And there's medically assisted treatment now. This time around, there's a shot of a drug called Vivitrol, which actually takes the craving away for opiates. So we have science on our side in this particular heroin crisis. And then the other thing we're doing is we're taking every overdose death, and this is in partnership with law enforcement, and we're investigating every overdose death with the same kind of attention in prosecutors and law enforcement as we do on a homicide case. So if you bring drugs into this county and you cause someone's death, we are going to deal with that as a top priority. So we're being easier on the front end and flexible, and harder on that back end where there's a death, hoping both of those tools in the toolbox are going to have some impact.
Very good. Do we have any questions from trustees?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
If a guy got a ticket, how does he know what days the county building is going to be available?
It's a great question. So what happens is when you get your ticket, it will have on it a pre-trial, or when you plead not guilty to a ticket, the clerk's office gives you a pre-trial date. And one of the things that'll happen is you're going to get a second piece of paper or a part of your email that says, if you want to do this west of the I, here's when you can do that. So there'll be a east of the I date and a west of the I date. And you'll just either email us back or you'll call us and say, I'm coming to the west of the I date. So it'll be a dual notice for folks who have an address out this direction. Yeah, that was a logistical nightmare which we have solved.
Any other questions at all from village board?
Well, I'll have some tomorrow.
Well, I'm going to tell you what, I'm going to leave some business cards to solve that problem. So I'll leave them with the clerk. So if anybody has anything, I'm always happy to answer questions. If you guys have constituents who are saying, you know, anything from why do I have to go to jury duty to, you know, what's happening to the burglary of my house, I'm happy to answer them. If you get those things, you feel free to put them in touch with me.